Okay, should we move on to The Invisible Man then?
Yes, sure.
Right. So, Invisible Man. You haven't seen the original, have you?
No, I've
No.
not seen the original.
So I watched it for the first time over the weekend, having
Yeah.
seen the new one, just for comparison.
Yep.
It's going to be a tangent, just because. But
Okay.
I want to talk about the original one quickly, because it's, it's a classic Universal monster film, and I was fully expecting it to be like that sort of gothic horror, like Dracula or Frankenstein. It's basically a comedy. It's just Claude Rains invisible for most of the time, and then stealing people's hats and throwing it into the rivers, and then doing some kind of like clever quip.
So it's not a horror film then?
Well, I would argue not, but it's interesting because I was confused by it, and I went and looked up the original H.G. Wells novel, and apparently that film is quite close to the novel.
Oh really?
Yeah, because the original story is just the scientist turns himself invisible by accident and then just goes insane and kills he's a mass murderer.
Okay.
Because he just turned insane. It's got a very comical, basically a comedy more than it's a horror.
Okay.
So, which I think puts the new one in a more interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Because this is much more. So this is taking. What I quite like about it is it's not a straight rehash of the original idea. They've taken the concept of an invisible man and done something new and relevant with it, which I like.
Yes.
And this is definitely much more of a horror film.
Yes. I think it's very good for a horror film.
Yeah, I think compared to most modern horror releases, this is sort of like above average, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. I did enjoy it. There were a couple issues with it, but we'll get onto them. So, should we give a very brief rundown of the plot?
Yeah, might as well, because this is such a new version of the story.
So there is Peggy from Mad Men. Elizabeth
His name
Moss.
is, yes.
I can't remember what the character's called.
Cecilia?
Cecilia, yeah, that was it. So she's a victim of domestic abuse.
Yeah, so she's with this super rich, he works in optics, he's a scientist.
Yeah, he's an optical scientist.
Yeah, he's supposed to be quite abusive, so she sort of flees from him in the middle of the night.
middle of the night, yeah. And the cool dog.
Oh, and the dog.
The nice
Which
dog.
doesn't turn up again. Oh, no, it does.
It does, but...
Not as much as I'd like for a dog,
Well, because I thought we talked about this before, this is another, Chekhov's gun, isn't it? I was like, oh, the dog's there. The dog's definitely there for a reason. I was like, maybe the dog's going to defend Cecilia. Or it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it does show up again, but...
Doesn't do anything useful.
There's nothing that comes of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she leaves in the middle of the night. Her sister helps her escape, and then she lives with her friend who's a policeman for a while. And then 2 weeks later, she finds out that her abusive husband...
I think that husband, yeah, because I think husband, because the point is he commits suicide, but he's left all his money to her in his will.
Yes.
So I think they must have been married for that to make sense. Or maybe not, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think it matters too much.
No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so he kills himself, and then 2 weeks later, she starts getting haunted. Well, you could say haunted.
Well,
but,
she starts noticing strange things going on around her, as if she's being haunted by the ghost of her boyfriend.
Yeah, and everyone's telling her it's in her head, but, obviously...
But she soon works out that he is, in fact, still alive, but haunting her via an invisibility suit that he's devised.
Yes.
And so, the main sort of conceit of the film is everyone thinks she's gone mad, and she's, being haunted by this thing, when actually she knows there's this invisible man chasing her.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of trying to prove that to the world.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting way around it, because it plays into a much more of a sort of a paranoid sense of horror, which I think is quite sort of modern.
So one thing I really did like about it was its excellent use of negative space.
Yes, I thought overall the composition and cinematography was very well done.
It just points the camera into an empty corner, and you're like, oh my god, is he there? Is he there? Is he watching? How do we know?
Yeah.
It does that really well. And also, the effects were good, he takes a knife, and you just see this knife float off the counter and then disappear. He takes it, and it was like, oh, okay, now he's armed.
Yeah.
There's all these things that are really well done. So I liked that aspect of it. I thought the horror's good. It never made me jump. There were a lot of jump scares that were just loud bangs, basically.
That's the thing. It's interesting the way the jump scares worked in this film, because there's a lot of the standard modern horror things where something very, very slightly startling happens, but not horrific, and then the music score will go boom, and on really sharp strings, but just sound like it hasn't been mixed properly, they haven't faded in, it's just been left in.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's some scenes like without spoiling in the restaurant scene.
Yeah.
That jump scare to me is like the perfect way to do it because it's something horrific that happens really suddenly.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't need any external or artificial sort of sound editing to make it. There's no strings needed to make it a moment. We just see it for what it is, and that is enough to startle us. And it feels a lot more of an organic scare.
Yeah.
But that's the frustrating thing about it is having demonstrated that it knows and can pull off these organic jump scares. It then still has some other scares, which are just the classic wham jump scares.
Yeah.
Where it feels so forced. It's like, well, I might have jumped to that anyway, but now that you've made me jump artificially with the music, I don't want to jump anymore.
Nothing really. There was a lot of good horror in there. Like as you say, there's a lot of horrific moments, and there's a lot of tension. You're on your edge of your seat quite a lot, but also there is a lot where I was just like, oh come on, this is very generic.
Yeah.
You know, when she's running through the house, saying like, you know, there's this unseeable thing chasing her, and it's like, well, we've seen this hundreds of times before. And then on top of that, they do those artificial jump scares. I was just like, meh, you know.
I think one of the biggest failing points of the film's horror, and I feel there's probably no easy way around this considering the concept they went for, is because a lot of horror relies on the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And the fact is, this is a very known horror. We've met the character. We
Yeah.
know what we know. Firstly, we know it's a man in an invisible suit. You know, we know we roughly know what his motivations are. We know who he is. We know why he's doing this. Besides the fear of the unknown of, oh, where is he in the frame? Oh, he's there.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of that fear of the unknown, which I think does stop it from being as horrific as it could be. Because it feels almost too grounded for a horror film.
Yeah.
Not that a horror film has to be supernatural for it to be horrific, but there's to be some kind of like unknown element to it
Yeah.
to give it that sort of fear factor, which I think this film does lack a bit. It feels a bit too... It feels almost too sci-fi thrillery when it does a horror
Yes.
in some aspects.
So there was a couple of things I didn't like about it, which was mainly like the invisible suit, right? Which somehow, as soon as you put it on, makes you superhumanly strong as well, which was just out of nowhere.
Wow.
Like, he went from just being invisible, you know, that's fine, yeah, it gives you an advantage, but he's, you know, then breaking bones with his bare hands, beating up 6 trained police officers, another one who's like a 6'5" tall brick shit house, and he's like, you know, just easily beats them up, and it's like, how strong are you really?
I can't remember.
You know.
They probably didn't mention it in the film, but I know in the original they did say like, "Oh, he's worked out. He's also a strong person, like by default."
Yeah,
So
well,
I don't
that's
know
the
if-
assumption, but that strong, you know,
Yeah,
being
there
able
is
to
definitely
break someone's leg just by touching it or whatever.
There's definitely a leap involved there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that took a lot of, you know, suspension of disbelief to sell that. Like,
Yeah.
especially the scene in the mental hospital.
Yeah. Sort of essentially the action highlight of the film.
Yeah. Which I thought was just like...
It seemed out of place for a horror film. Like it seemed much more the kind of thing I'd expect from a sci-fi rendition of The Raid.
Yeah. It was strange. Yeah, it was out of place. But also it was like, you know, these policemen just come in 2 by 2 and then get very easily dispatched by this invisible man.
I mean, he's invisible.
Well, yeah, but also when that policeman has just walked into a bunch of dead bodies, he sees a floating gun, would you not just open fire? Well, you know, I just feel like there's a lot of convenience there to make to force the script to work.
Yeah.
So I think a highlight for me is Elizabeth Moss.
Yeah.
I think she was very good. Yeah, she stood out. Her acting was, you know, brilliant. I think she pulled off the crazy but not really kind of...
Just there's a lot of emotional weight to carry in that film. I think it's...
Yeah.
Because so much of the film relies on sort of emotional paranoia.
Yes.
I think that requires a lot of good acting chops to do, which she's demonstrated quite well.
Yeah. So, shall we talk about the ending?
Yeah, I can tell you want to, so we might as well.
Yeah,
so if you'd like to
spoilers, yeah.
skip the spoilers for this, there'll be a time code on the YouTube video.
Okay.
So,
in the end, she goes... It turns out that the Invisible Man, her ex-boyfriend, who was the abuser, was alive the whole time, and that he'd pinned the whole thing on his brother, who she had shot to death after he tried and killed her. Whatever, right? So she's back in his house. They're having dinner. He's like trying to pretend that it was the brother who was in control the whole time. And she's got a wire on her with her police mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sitting outside.
She's got a wire and they're trying to get a confession. She's trying to make him confess. She's being like, tell me the truth. Was it you the whole time? She's like, I know it was you the whole time. Tell me the truth the whole time. And he says surprise, which he says a few times before.
Or specifically, Invisible Man texts her surprise quite often.
Yeah, and also he says in the corridor in the mental hospital, he says surprise. He says it a couple of times. Anyway, but that's enough for her, right? She then's like, I'm just going to the toilet, lol. She then puts on the
second invisible suit she stole earlier.
Yeah. And then comes back and kills him.
In the invisible suit.
And then,
So it's caught on camera that he committed suicide, in inverted quotes. Which, I mean, I'm not sure if the invisibility suit is known to the authorities. Which, I mean, I suppose that's
maybe they didn't know if there's two, yeah.
Because then it's like, it's quite clear that the way he like slits his throat doesn't look like suicide as far as I say. But
also, so that bit just sort of lost me because I feel like the whole point of the film was the victim rising above the perpetrator, like being better than them. Like he is horrible to her. He kills her sister.
Yeah.
He makes everyone think that she's crazy and horrible and abusive to other people. And then I thought that the whole point of it was that she was going to rise above it, and then even though he's put her through all of this, she still survives. She still gets the has a moral victory. And I did think he was going to die, but I didn't think she was going to kill him. And I feel like that kind of detracted it in a way, because obviously she's got revenge, but I feel like that's lost then this sort of moral high ground that she had. That's also, sort of allegorical for this whole, abuse thing. She's survived. She is better than him by not doing it. And then she sinks to his level by killing him, which makes her no better than him, in a way.
Weird hint that now she's got the invisible suit and she's killed, she's now going to become the new Invisible Man, but the Invisible Woman.
Yeah.
Which is a dodgy sequel hook.
Yeah, is weird.
Yeah, and again, I think it's completely it's off message from what the rest of the film was going for.
Yeah. See, I feel like that. So originally, let's just talk about the Dark Universe for a bit.
Okay, yeah.
So originally, this was going to be part of the Dark Universe.
With the Mummy and Dracula...
Unsomethinged.
Untold, yeah.
May have kicked it off. I can't remember if that hit.
It was such a small film that no one watched it. I can't even tell.
And then the Mummy with Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise is the Mummy featuring Tom Cruise, directed by Tom Cruise, taken over by Tom Cruise.
And there was going to be some other ones as well. I think there was going to be a
Jekyll
werewolf.
and Hyde was planned.
And Jekyll and Hyde, yeah. Because Russell Crowe in the Mummy film was Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah. And in that film, there's like loads of Easter eggs to the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, yeah. Surely the Shape of Water was the
that's the joke, isn't it? Yeah. And they were going to make some sort of, I don't know, traditional horror figure Avengers kind of deal.
Yeah, which I didn't quite understand how that was going to work when they're all monsters rather than heroes. Unless it would be like a Suicide Squad style thing.
But
I was saying, on a slight tangent, I think what would have made more sense was the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
Or which the Invisible Man was a part of, and would still have that sort of supernatural kind of...
Yeah.
But, anti-heroes. But at least they were a pre-existing gang who come together and fight crime, whatever, like the Avengers, rather than trying to force a load of technically unconnected monsters together.
Yeah, but also, like, evil figures, aren't they? Like, Dracula is definitely evil. The werewolf is an uncontrollable beast. Jekyll and Hyde,
tortured scientist.
Exactly, famously good versus evil there.
The Invisible Man is just a lunatic who's just throwing things at people.
Yeah, so anyway, so originally the Invisible Man was going to be played by Johnny Depp. That fell through, I think, when...
I can't imagine why.
when The Mummy flopped. But they still decided to release this film. And I feel like that bit at the end there was I don't know if it was left over from the script of the last one. You know, I feel like they were forced to hint at a sequel.
Yeah, that's
So
what
that
it seemed
end
like.
really, really makes it feel like, oh yeah, we're doing a sequel. We're definitely doing a sequel.
It definitely feels like a standalone film. So I think there was
Yeah.
definitely some sort of rewrite or reshoot to make it its own standalone work.
Yes. The thing is that, especially the way they're doing it, with that, I mean, there's nothing, I mean, besides the super strength that comes with it for some reason, there's nothing inherently supernatural about it. It's supposedly based in science.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't make them a superhero or you know, whatever.
Well, I mean, you can argue with Iron Man. He's just got
Well,
a suit.
that's true, but then he's, you know,
He's a genius
all
as
the
well.
stuff that comes with that. But she's just going to be a woman that can go invisible for a bit.
Like in Fantastic Four.
Wow. If she's got force fields.
Oh.
Yeah. That's
Well
the
then.
thing. Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to do with that. I just feel like that bit at the end was really forced.
Also, because I think with at least The Mummy, there's supposed to be a Dark Universe like title card at the beginning,
Yes.
which this film didn't have. So I
No,
think they
it
have
didn't.
definitely given up on that idea by now.
Okay.